Hari Om. Sadasvatamaram Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Narayana Samarambham Acharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Nam Karta Harisartha Puja Samchakram Yadyat Karma Karom Tattvatam Shambho Tamayam. Om Namo Bhagavate Sivananda. Om Namo Bhagavate Chidananda. Om Namo Bhagavate Krishnanda. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shanti Rupena Samstita. Namaste, 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 Namo Namo. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Chiti Rupena Samstita. Namaste, 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 Namo Namo. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Vidya Rupena Samstita. Namaste, Namaste, Namaste. Prostrations at the lotus feet of Gurudev, Guru Parampara. Prostrations at the feet of Lotus Mother. And we just continue what little interaction we started yesterday. That's about Bhagavad Gita. And we also touched upon the essence of Divine Mother. Before we start today, there is a tradition that when we chant Bhagavad Gita, normally we chant Gita Dhyanam. So one sloka, the first sloka of Gita Dhyanam itself is self-sufficient, and that takes care of the entire content of Bhagavad Gita. So we chant that and then we can proceed further. Om Partha-2 Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Prahitam Puranina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavashivim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvamandadhami Bhagavat Gite Bhagavadeshinim. So we're talking about what Bhagavad Gita is yesterday. The same thing is put in this beautiful verse by Vedavyasa also. So, Om Partha-2 Pratibodhitam. So this is for the enlightenment or the knowledge of Partha, who represents an average, ordinary human being, mortal, but endowed with some good spiritual sanskars, good inner spiritual strength. Now that's Sadhaka. It represents Sadhaka. Om Partha-2 Pratibodhitam. For his enlightenment. Bhagavad Gita is for that. And who does that? Narayanena Swayam. So, Bhagavan Swayam is doing that task of enlightenment. Now, in our Sanatana Dharma, there are different words which are used for describing Supreme Reality. So, in Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavata, the word Bhagavan is used. And some people say it is more used for those who are devotees of Lord Vishnu. They use the word Bhagavan like that. Ishvara is the word used by devotees of Lord Shiva, like that they say. But more correctly we can say that whenever that Supreme Reality takes incarnation, avatar, in that case also we can use the word Bhagavan. So in Srimad Bhagavata and Mahabharata, Lord Krishna became incarnation. Sanatana Dharma or Hindu Dharma is the only religion which talks about Supreme Reality taking its incarnation. There is no other religion which talks about the incarnation of Supreme Reality. So Narayana and Shiva also in essence mean the same thing. Normally we think of Lord Shiva, Narayana, and think of Lord Vishnu. That's okay. But in the essential, esoteric meaning, it's all pervading divine consciousness. Same thing is meant by Shiva, same thing is meant by Narayana. They are synonymous words in the ultimate meaning. So Narayana, the one who was incarnated as Lord Sri Krishna, he is doing the task of enlightenment. And that particular teaching or the enlightenment was compiled, Vyasena Prahitam Puranina. So he is the ancient Rishi, he compiled these teachings where? Madhye Mahabharata, in the middle of Mahabharata. And we saw that is Vishwabhara, that this particular thing was compiled, concentrated in 700 verses only. You find many verses of Upanishads also in Bhagavad Gita. And the essence is obviously same. So that was compiled, and that is the essence. And that is why they say that Sugita, Gita, Sugita, Kartavi, Kimani, Sastra, Vistarahi. Even if you are able to study Bhagavad Gita, it is tantamount to, or it is equal to having studied all the different Shastras. Vyasena, Katinam, Purana Munina, Madhya Mahabharata. Advaitamrita Varshene. So this is Amrita. But which kind of Amrita? Advaita Amrita Varshene. So is this Amrita different from the Amrita which we know? And the Samudra Manthan? That Amrita, what we hear of normally in Samudra Manthana, that is more about its giving longevity to physical body. But when you say Advaita Amrita, the one which gives the idea and the knowledge of oneness of Jiva and Ishvara, Tattvamasi. So that particular Amrita is something which is more vital. It brings about the complete liberation, complete moksha. So Advait Amrita, not the usual Amrita which we normally understand. Ashtadasha Adhyayini, as you know, the 18 chapters. Amba means what? Amba Tvam. Amba means affection. So Divine Mother, we normally think by pictures and everything is very ferocious and kings and diamonds, this and that. That's one part. But in the ultimate form, the Divine Mother is compassionate. Amba Tvam means to that Divine Mother. Anusandasami means I will follow. Anusandha means to follow. Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Vishani. And Bhagavad Vishani, what does it mean? Destroyer of rebirth. So normally they say that it is because of this ajnana which is there that we are born, because of the ignorance of the self that we are born, and we are born with various sanskaras, as we saw yesterday also, within our chitta, and because of that sanskaras which we carry, those sanskaras transform into vasanas, desires. Desires are normal desires. But when they become binding desires, strong force, they are called as Vasana and Krishna. Because of the Vasanas and Krishnas which come up, Raga and Dvesha come up, we perform karma. We perform different actions. And then what is happening next? Once we have the karma, what does it lead to? It leads to karma phala. So, normal sense, karma leads to karma phala. And that is how this cycle of death and birth continues. But Bhagavad Gita is a unique scripture which will explain us later that karma is not only binding, but karma also has got a liberating. Karma also has got a liberating force. Because the whole world is acting. The karma is going on consciously or unconsciously. Wherever we see, either knowingly or unknowingly, within our living cells, within our inanimate objects outside also, constantly some kind of change is taking place. This change is so inherent in nature. If change is so much a part of the natural mechanism, how can it only be binding? There has to be something beyond that also. In the Bhagavad Gita teaches us, that karma which is performed intelligently, and they call wisdom-free action. So whenever the karma is performed with understanding, with wisdom, without the feeling of doership or the experience without feeling that I am karta or the bhokta, I do that karma for the sake of my swadharma, as an act of offering to the Lord. And when the Lord has created such a huge cosmos and so much of actions are there, I am playing my small part. With that feeling, once you perform karma, that karma becomes karma yoga. And that is the central essence, that we see, that karma yoga helps us in transformation. So normally we don't do that. And what happens is that we are born with a set of sanskaras, impressions, once we are born, and because of those power of those sanskaras, which are more of rajas and tamas as compared to sattva, it transforms into various vasanas, patience, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, all klesha, and then that leads to karma phala. And the karma phala again is more samskara. So what happens is, that when we go for travel, normally we start with small luggage. And once we end up, normally we think that the luggage will be useless and we will come with empty. But we see that we end up with more luggage when we return from a physical journey also. So likewise in this journey of earth also we come with some samskaras. And Mahapurusha tell us that the goal should be, if you live a life successfully, we should be able to minimize the burden. And we should end the life with lesser sanskaras, or ideally they are burned once we gain that. But that doesn't happen. And that is why this cycle of life and birth or transmigration continues. And Bhagavad Gita is the one. It is moksha shastra. There are different kind of interpretations, different kind of benefits people are taking from Bhagavad Gita. As yesterday said, people talk about management, these are everything. But ultimately in one line, if somebody were to say what is Bhagavad Gita, then we can say Bhagavad Gita is basically moksha shastra. It is a science of liberation. It's a religion which teaches regeneration and revival of an essential self. So that's the whole thing about that Gita Dhanam. What YVFA says. We are discussing about what Bhagavad Gita is, and then we mainly came to that one point which is called as Arjuna disease. That is what we say. Swami Sivananda Maharaj is fond of using this word, that Arjuna disease and Krishna therapy. That's how we use it. And we are all now accustomed to this terminology of disease and the therapy. So close to well with that. So Arjuna disease is what is that. So what exactly is Arjuna disease? Yesterday we were discussing something. So can you recall a bit, one or two lines? What is exact Arjuna disease? Ignorance is the root cause, fine. And as you rightly say, that ignorance transforms into moha and shoka. That's what we say, correct? So is this Arjuna disease only about spiritual arrest, or it has something to do with our worldly life also? It has to do with both. It has to do with worldly life also, correct? And how and what exactly happens? Now here we can also link little with divine worship which you are doing. So when you say ignorance, basically, it is basically the Maya Shakti only. Like yesterday I said to you that Brahman and Maya, they are not entirely different. Maya is the Shakti, is the power of that Parabrahman. And in that sense, both are not essentially different. But Parabrahman is a transcendental static part. Parabrahman is transcendental static. It is Nirguna and Nirakara. It is not interested or it does not have any instinct for any action. It is happy by itself, abiding its own sense of Sivananda. Then how the whole creation comes, But that is because of that mysterious power of that Parabrahman, which is called as Maya Shakti, Adi Shakti, Mahashakti, Parashakti, all that we talk. That one day that Parabrahman thought that Ekoham Praushyam Prayayeta, I am alone, that will become many. Like that is desire. Why and what? Very difficult to understand answer. But that is what the Vedas says. Ekoham Praushyam Prayayeta. We also feel many times, maybe that's it, full of character, and I am alone, may I become many. And by itself, it is transcendental, beyond the senses, beyond this Nirguna, Nirakara, Rupa. It does not have anything to do. It is just like a static electricity, just as if it were a battery. The battery is there, it will not be seen, there is power. When we take a travel by the air, also those batteries are checked, because it can be potential source of ignition. Correct? So that way it is very static. But it is the same battery, the electricity, which is there. And battery of course is DC, whether it is DC or AC current, but that electricity once it moves to the conducting media, and through the various apparatuses it gets manifested. So once it comes to this incandescent to the fluorescent tube, we see as a fluorescent light. When it moves through fan, we can see this mechanical motion and all kinds of energy we see. So that electricity is something like Maya Shakti or Parashakti. On one side you have got a battery, that is the static power, transcendental power, supreme power, Brahman. So it's deciding its own side. Whenever Pralaya is there, only that power Brahman is there. And its Mahashakti is there. Mahashakti is acting at that time. Mahashakti is also taking reports in its Brahman. Nothing is there, all at peace or at peace. But when that creation comes, and only in that creation part, that will come into play. And when we say Ishvara, that God is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, it is all in relation to creation. So, in technical terms, they explain like that Sat Chit Ananda is the Swarupa of Parabrahma. It is by itself. Sat exists. Chit means what knows, what reveals, and this is it by itself. Swarupa. Everything, every time you will find. Even in manifested world also Chit Ananda is there. But along with that Chit Ananda, then there are other things also called Tatastha. So whenever that creation came, the concept Ishvara came, that Maya Upahit Chaitanya. And that is how we think of Ishvara as the one who created the whole universe. We think of Ishvara who sustains the whole universe. We think of Ishvara who ultimately leads to dissolution also. So it is only in creation that these particular things came. So these things, omnipresent, omnipotent and omniscient. Sarvasaktiman, Sarvagya. These are called as Tatastha Lakshana of Supreme Reality. They will be there only in relation to creation. That's fine. So one part is for Brahman, which is transcendental. Maya is something which is very kinetic, very dynamic. It always wants to move, act. And because of the association of Maya with Parabrahma. But Maya is under the influence of Parabrahma. Maya is under the control of Parabrahma. Not like us, we are under its influence. So Parabrahman holds, controls, and they call Maya Upahi Chaitanya. Chaitanya means Paramatma, Supreme Reality. Along with Maya is called Ishvara. Maya Upahi Chaitanya. So Ishvara came, and that is how Ishvara is looking after the whole wonderful creation. And when you want to understand the concept of Ishvara, we can see what does it mean. Even if you don't understand anything, simply orderliness in the universe. Look at the magnanimity, the meticulous way in which everything is maintained. That's Ishvara. You cannot think of so orderliness. Even a small thing we try to create, we find so much of problems, difficulties. How such a grand and earth, what we know is very small, minuscule of the whole universe. The orderliness in the whole creation is called Ishvara. So this is, we say Brahma here, and which Maya ultimately on this side is creation. So creation comes into being. And creation, we are part and parcel of creation. And creation, when we say, there are two types of creation. One is called Sthula, one is called as Sukshma. So one is called as a gross, one is called as a subtle. Correct? So what is gross universe? Gross universe is the one which is comprising of 5 basic elements. 5 basic elements. So which are all, you all know, correct? They are all from Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Jad and Prithvi. So all these 5, not in the form that we see. In the form that we see is gross. But there is a subtle bunch of arms also. So subtle ether or the space, like that subtle Vayu, Agni, that constitutes subtle or Sukshma Jagat. That constitutes Sukshma Jagat. And Sukshma Jagat is also Samashti and Yashti. Sukshma is also Samashti and Yashti. So what is our Sukshma Sharira? You have got the Prana, you have got the Indriyas, you have got the mind, that's a part of Sukshma Sharira. What is subtle body? Likewise, there is the cosmic mind, cosmic prana, cosmic intellect also. So in one word, the creation can be thought of 2 entities. One is subtle, one is gross. Subtle or Sukshma is what we cannot perceive by our senses. We cannot perceive by our senses. The mind can comprehend it because mind itself is subtle. Right? So this is one creation. And the other thing is gross. And we don't want to go into technical details. But if you are interested, you can read the Panchikarana chapter in the any Prakarana Grantha. And that will explain you how subtle Sukshma Panchamahabhuta became Sthula or gross Panchamahabhuta. So all five are combined, only then each one forms. The whole technical process, which is like a different one. So gross Panchamahabhuta leads to this gross good. So all the objects what we see, mountains, the rivers, the water, our own physical body also. What you see, Annamaya Kosha, physical body, is also a part of Sthula. Is also a part of Sthula. And within that, we have got Sthula. So we are all born with that through Jagata and Sthula. And there is also one more body, what we call as Karan Sharira. What is the Karan Sharira? Karan Sharira is not any kind of a matter. Understand? Karan Sharira is not any kind of a matter. It is not dravya. Just as you got a physical body, subtle body, but Karan Sharira is not any matter. Karan Sharira is dravyatma nahi hai. There is no matter. Only the ajnana or the maya, what we call, reflecting in our this particular individual subtle gross body is referred to as, correct? So like the Karan Sharira. And Karan Sharira is the avidya or the maya, which is responsible for gross and subtle body, which is called as Karan Sharira. Now the main problem what we wanted to understand here was, what is the problem here? And why that Arjuna got that particular problem. Correct? So what is wrong in this whole thing? That because of that Brahman associating with Maya, we got Ishvara, and with this small part of that Maya called Ajnana, we became individual. Ajnana of Chaitanya is called Jiva. Maya of Chaitanya is Ishvara, Ajnana of Chaitanya is individual. So Ishvara is no problem. It is also there with Maya. So why should we have a problem? When we say Maya of Chaitanya, so with Paramatma and Maya is okay, they are happy. Then why should individual have any problem? That is what we can think, correct? So then they explain that this divine mother whom we worship these days actually represents that imponderable divine Maya Shakti of God. And that imponderable Achintya Shakti of Paramatma has got two powers. Has got two main powers. Which are they? You must have heard several times. Which are the two powers of Maya Shakti, which in our individual represents the Vidya or Jnana, correct? So which are the two main powers? Vidya. Very commonly must have heard this word, you know. Avara Shakti, that's fine. And other thing is, Avara Shakti is okay, then what else? Vikshepa Shakti, we can say that's true, correct? So two main things are there. One is Avara Shakti and one is Vikshepa Shakti. So, see, Maya is the most difficult thing to understand. Very imponderable, as Shinda also says. But let us, in a small way, try to understand what does it really mean to us. As much as we can follow. And then whatever we can follow, we can pray for our grace. So one thing is willing power. Avara Shakti is the power. So what is willing power? That what is truth or is as if it is conceived. As if it is conceived. Now just as there is a rope, and very commonly explained in Vedanta also, right? That rope is there. And what happens? That because of that dim light, which is called twilight. Twilight is neither light nor dark. That's what is called as the twilight. So because of that, supposing there was a darkness, complete darkness, no problem. You will not see the rope, you will not see the snake. And if it is full light, there is no problem also. The problem is when there is a limited knowledge, you know. At that point of time, Jnana is there. So that particular rope is hidden and appears as snake eyes. So first thing is Avarana Shakti or willing power. So as if it hides. Why does it do? There are different explanations again, but let us not go that far right now. So truth is hidden to us. So what happens? We are not able to see the truth. Now here, what is the truth? The truth about our own self. The truth about the Supreme Reality, you know, which manifests in us as individual, Jivatma. So what happens is that because it does not know what it is, the other power of Maya, that is called Vikshepa Shakti, comes into play. And because you don't see something in a righteous form, in its original form, you see something as if it is something else. So that is called as perverted knowledge. That is called as a perverted. So between the two, what is the real problem? Total Ajnana is not a problem. total Ajnana supposing was there would be no problem. Do we have any situation in life where we have complete Ajnana and we have no problem? Can you think of any event in our life or any situation in our life where we have complete Ajnana, total ignorance and no problems? These things when we say, it is very true because that is what Ajnana is there. So at that time only Karan Sharira is there. There is gross body is absolutely at rest, we are not aware of it. Even that subtle body, Suksha Sharira also is not functioning. So mind is also not there, intellect is also not there. But the Chaitanya is there. And that Chaitanya or that Atman is able to see the darkness also. So the faculty of Jnana is not only it reveals Jnana, it reveals Ajnana also. So that is why modern management also they teach that knowledge is not only about what we know. Knowledge is also about knowing what we do not know. Because when we know that we don't know this, there is a scope of doing and learning. But if we are happy with what we do not know or if we are aware about it, then that knowledge will never come to us. So Ajnana per se alone is not a problem. On the contrary, we take it as a bliss. Nidra Samadhi Sthiti, that's what Jayant says, that on one side is Jnana is there, nothing else is there, it's like bliss. On the other side is saying Jnana is bliss. So here, why is bliss? Ajnana, why it is called bliss? Because Jnana is there. So Jnana is bliss, knowledge is bliss, he says. Why Jnana is bliss here? Because there is no disturbance or no interference from mind, body and intellect. When we awaken, the Jagrata Avastha is there, Swapna Avastha is there, at that time the subtle body and gross body is aware. We are aware of that. And this subtle body and gross body, as we know, they are comprising of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas because they come from Maya. And Maya has got three gunas. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas is there. So they are there as a part of body, as a part of mind, everything. And because of our supposing, we were only aware of the body. We were only aware of the mind, the fragility of the mind, the frugality of the mind, the despondence of the intellect. There is no problem. But because of that Maya, what happens? The true nature is not revealed to us. We are ignorant about it. The worst part is not ignorance. The worst part is perfect ignorance. It makes us feel something what is not right as right and what is right as wrong. That's the greatest problem. And that is exactly Arjuna disease, which is called as Anyonya. It is Anyonya Dhyas. That's called as Anyonya Dhyas. That the characteristics of the soul, Atman, which is eternal, ever present, never going to die. Those, why? That is superimposed on mind and body. That's fine, physical and mind exists. But the limitations, the finiteness of the body, that I am limited, I have to die, that we attribute to the Atman. And that is how a person feels, that I am going to die. And that is what Arjuna also exactly felt. That he thought that I am going to die. That the Bhagavan says all this scripture, there is no death for the soul. It is immortal. But because of the identification of the soul with the body, we feel that I am subject to decay, I am subject to death. Similarly, because of the identification of the Atman with that mind, I feel happy, I am unhappy. I was in very good mood, I was in bad mood. I was depressed, I was elevated. And because of the association, or they call tadatya, oneness is that. Just as you have got an iron ball and you have got a fire. When you heat that iron ball, what will happen? The fire will look like as if it is a round ball. So fire is not having any shape. Agni has no shape. But because of the close association, that the characteristics of each other are brought superimposed. That's called as Anyonya. And that is how we see that fire, ball of fire. So who is at the loss? Fire or the ball? The ball is at the gauge. Ball gains light, ball gains luster. So that is not the loss to ball. So likewise, when we identify, with this body, mind and intellect, body, mind are okay. They are getting Chaitana, they are getting spirit, they are benefiting. But the loser is there. So what exactly is required? Not that this body, mind, intellect has to be eliminated. Only thing is, we have to know them that they are the adjuncts. They are the devices. They are the instruments. which God has given for reflection, for manifestation of that very reality which is within. It needs an instrument for the manifestation. So that is how we should see them, and that is all about Jnana Yoga. The Jnana Yoga is not against upadhis. They realize, yesterday I was talking, that buddhi is the upadhi where the Brahmakara Vritti will come. So upadhis are not the problem. But identifying ourselves with the upadhi, and that is the cause of problem. And because of that, what happens? We do not get only spiritual or evolution is stopped. But because of that, what happened in case of Arjuna, that because of that particular thing, all the limiting factors will come to us, and the nervous breakdown, the psychological breakdown we call, psychological maladjustment what we call pain. So all the indriyas are good, they are helpful, even for doing our secular functions also. You know? But if we lose control over them, in that case our secular functions are also getting affected. So that is how the first goal is that all those instruments which God has given to us have to be rejuvenated, have to be energized. We perform our action first karma. If our body is not right, if the mind is not right, intellect is not right, we cannot do any karma. And if we cannot do any karma, we cannot evolve for Jnana Marga also. So yesterday we were saying, and maybe in details, I don't know what way I started, but they say that there are two solutions are there. One is priori and one is posterior. So priori is what? Directly addressing the root cause. Straight away Bhagavan, initially when Arjuna says all these problems, Chishyajan, Saryam, Prapanna, God does not say anything to Arjuna. This was the problem which Arjuna had. And when did the Upadesha start? When did the Upadesha start? This is also important to understand, correct? Everybody thinks Upadesha started in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, correct? So that was, I think that is the 11th verse. Yeah. But did Bhagavan say anything before that also? No. Did Bhagavan give any other Upadesha or in some other way? See, God has got very mysterious ways to help us, you know. So did Bhagavan in this case Bhagavad Gita, you know that everybody knows that the first chapter and the verses first to 10, the second chapter, what are they? They are about the qualification of the aspirant. They are about the qualification of the aspirant. Who should be the sadhaka? That is what all about that. First chapter and 10 verses of the second. And then the teaching starts. But before that, did Bhagavan do any help? It's a very simple question actually. Yes, then how and where?
Is the chariot both the army?
Yeah. So how did that help? Good.
Arjun could see it.
So you are right. I would say you are 50% right. That he just placed the chariot in the front of his head. But the trick lies here again, brother. Had he put the chariot in front of the Duryodhana, in front of the Dushasana, there would not have been any problem. The problem happened because the chariot was placed deliberately because Bhagavan was a great psychologist. Today psychologists, they hardly can gain in Raj Yoga, what we study is big psychology. Our entire modern psychologists come from Raj Yoga also. So that was placed in front of Vishnu. It was placed in front of Bhagavan. So Bhagavan sometimes helps us in a silent way. We don't even know that we are helped, Sometimes we feel dejected in life, that what is happening to me, so much of sadhana, and this, that. But then there are silent ways of God's help, But that prompted him to expect his problem. And that is how the whole thing started. And as I said, all these things because of that, when you say the identification with the agents, that is basically called as ahankara. That is basically called as ahankara. So ahankara and chidabhas are very close words, but I am not right now getting into that. That supreme reality which is within us, it gets reflected in antahkarana as called chidabhas. And that is actually jiva. And it is very close to ahankara. So let us for the time being understand chidabhas and ahankara as very close to each other. Correct? So what happens is that Atman or the supreme reality became chidabhas for the ahankara. And that was the chariot here Arjuna was sitting there. Correct? So our body chariot, who is the master? Ahankara. So everything what we do is for satisfaction of the Ahankara. What we do, what we do not do. Our acts of commission, our acts of commission, all are for supporting the Ahankara. The Ahankara gets hurt, we don't like it. And the great Mahapurushas, whenever the Ahankara is hurt, they realize and they take on the right path. And ordinarily when Ahankara hurt means it reinforces. Not this time, I will next time. That's the beauty of Ahankara. But the great people, once Ahankara is touched, means they know it has touched my core and that transforms their life. And that happens to many. Even if Ahankara is broken sometimes, it is not always inhibited. So in that sense, yesterday what we are discussing the chariot of Arjuna is an Ahankara. And that this particular individual body chariot guides everything that is Ahankara. Now, Ahankara is not to be completely negated, understand? Sivananda Swamiji Maharaj explained in one very good book, Ahankara plays three useful roles. But again, that's slightly going beyond, I am not doing it right now. If Ahankara is not there, we just can't function. We can't do any action also. Any karma yoga, if you want to need some Ahankara, so we will go down. So Ahankara is completely worthless. What is the important is, we should try to understand the limitations of Ahankara, the finiteness of Ahankara, the binding force of Ahankara, and try to see the source, the light. Ahankara is so shining. Where does the light come from? That moon is shining, moon doesn't have any light. That light is the reflected light of sun. So even in full moon day, you see moon full bloom. But moon should understand that this is not my light, this is reflected light. And Ahankara should realize that all the light, all the strength which I have is because of the Ashram. Then all other engines are there. You can see that things function. And Ahankara can also function. But realizing its limitation and not adjoining, not uniting, not confluencing with the Ashram. That is the solution of the whole message what we say. So in that sense, Arjuna, and initially that revelation came to him. And finally he understood that, I lost myself. And that particular sloka is there in this second chapter, that seventh verse. He makes an admission of himself. Yes, I am a patient. I have broken down. The first thing to find any right medicine or therapy is recognition yourself. And then admission also, the right person. You don't do it to everybody that I am not, that's not required. But recognizing that there is a problem and talking with the right person. Seeking help is intelligent daily. Even our management people say like this, we should know where to seek help and whose help. You should not go and take the agreement. That will not get us to any of us. So here, he takes recourse to Bhagwan. And he says, Arpanya dosha causes to Bhagwan. I am broken down, I have lost myself. Prithami tvam dharma sammuda cheta. I am asking you, I have lost my sense, what is good, what is not good for me, I am not able to follow. Yet shreyam shanishridam prahitamim tishra shreyam sadhanam kam. I consent to become your disciple. And Shishyatva is a very high qualification. As high as Guru. Being Shishya is not ordinary. We can be well-wisher, we can be follower of somebody, we can be devotee of somebody. But Shishya means somebody who follows his Guru in entirety, in letter and spirit, in explicit and explicit terms. So being Shishya is a very great thing. And only that Shishya can become a great Guru. And then Bhagavan finally says the message which he gives in that second chapter, 11th verse. Ashochyam anusubhyasattvam prajnavana svavase ratasuna vikasamsya now sojanti pandita. Means panditaha na anusujanti. They do not believe. And as we say, Ajnana leads to moha and moha leads to shoka. So moha is delusion. Because we don't have the right understanding, we don't do right thing, right feelings, and we get shoka. So in one way we can say that the Bhagavad Gita message is liberation of the moksha. But in a more practical terms, we can say the message is no grief should be there. As long as any kind of grief is there, means there is something incomplete in us, and the message we have not fully digested. And that is how Bhagavan also concludes the whole teaching That we will see in the 18th chapter, the 66th verse. Sarvadharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja aham tva sarva papebhyo moksha ishyami ma suchaha. Again, that's what I said, ma suchaha. That do not grieve. No grief should be there. And as long as that knowledge is not there, that grief will be there. So, having said all these things, understand that Ajnana or Avidya is the cause, which is the cause of delusion and the grief, it also leads to either 5 klesha. So, what is the remedy now? If Ajnana is the problem, what is the remedy? Jnana. Because you only have to counter it. So, Adi Shankara always says, there is only oneness, there is no duality. But then why all these other things are there? So, first message is direct. You give that intravenous injection or intrathecal injection directly within the organ, medicine goes and you get disease. But then everybody may not be able to take that. We need Shuddha Antakaran. We need Shuddha Antakaran. Only then that message can go. If the Antakara is not Shuddha, message will never go. That is how Bhagavan says all that. And some verses are there for Karma Yoga also, some verses are there for Bhakti Yoga also, some verses are there for Sannyasa Yoga also. So having said all this also, everything was given to him in that message. And in that sense, Bhagavad Gita was explained wholly in chapter 2. There was no need for any other thing. So that message will not go, will not percolate. And that is how Gita thought that having said yourself so many things, if you listen to somebody's talk for 1 hour and then didn't follow anything, then either repeat that or you do something else. So that trial therapy did not work. So what did Bhagavan do? Posterior therapy. That one thing is from cause to effect. Bhagavan says, no problem. Let us go from where we are. Let us start from where we are. And all Shastras are about our journey from known to unknown. So if you don't follow the Atman, okay, no issue. Let us start from where we are. And that is how the whole message of Karma Yoga came. That even Adi Shankara said also that Karma and Jnana, they are the two essential yogas. All others are supplementary. And they cannot be, Swami Shivananda Maharaj is slightly different way of explanation for us also, which makes it more practical. But Adi Shankara is very categorical. That karma is something which is in beyond. As long as we live in this feeling of identification with body, mind, this and that, it is a part of duality. Duality is right for us. And bearing Acharya Shankara, all other Acharyas of Sanatana Dharma, Nimbarka Acharya, Vallabhacharya ji, Ramanujacharya ji, they regard all world as real. They don't regard India. They have got a slightly different approach in Bhakti Marga. But they say that in this case, the whole thing is that if you are not able to do that, realize the Atman, in that case you purify the intellect, and then that is the Karma Yoga comes. That is how the Bhakti Yoga comes. That Dhyana Yoga also comes, that because we are not ready for the direct reception, direct comprehension of the act of Jnana, because we are conditioned with so many things, we carry different sanskaras of previous, but it doesn't go into us, So let us not worry about it. Let us start with Karma Yoga, let us start with devotion, let us start with Jnana, and once our Antakarana gets purified, that knowledge automatically reveals itself. Because this knowledge is Swayam Samvedya and self-revealing. See, tomorrow I talk to you different words are there. One is knowledge revealed to the self, and one is knowledge is self-revealing. All other the Jayant Swamiji Maharaj that Vedanta class explained one day next day, that all the knowledge, supposing this paper weight is there, book is there, this knowledge is revealed to me, to my intellect. But this knowledge is not revealed to me, it is self-revealed. Other knowledge is revealed to the self. This knowledge is self. In a very simple word, if you call, and radioactive material is there, it doesn't need any other light. It's science by itself. All other objects, we have to show some light, only then they can be seen. So this is the self-revealing knowledge, which is coming by itself, spontaneous. It doesn't require any medium. Right? And for revelation of that knowledge, we need that our mind, our intellect should be conditioned, we should perform Karma Yoga also. And for that purpose, for making our instrument right, we pray to divine. That part I just do not talk today, maybe more will say, and that is the prayer Eviation Mama Maya Gurateya, Mam Evi Maya Karati. If the problem is Maya, again, we can't only, we can do one part is the mother worship. That is also one way. That's what we are doing right now. And second thing is, Bhagavan also says that Maya is very, very hard to conquer. Aviation Mam Evi Maya. So when they worship God in the Nirakara form or Sakara form, in recourse to Maya, in both the cases, it keeps our inner instrument ready, final for the reception and comprehension of Siva. That is the message of Gita, and that is what we do. So may Divine Mother also enable us to pursue this path, have the right comprehension and right practice. May our Divine grace be upon all of us forever. That is my humble prayer. Hare